Yeah, it's like careers just they're like roller coaster tracks these days,
It's
aren't they? I
kind of
think
the nature of what we do, isn't it?
yeah, you've got to drive and you follow it, and it takes you places that you aren't expecting.
So you are, according to reporting, the editor of the Circus Diaries, circus editor at This Is Cabaret, giggle doctor at Theodora's Children's Trust, performer and facilitator at Phileas Fog Theatre Company, writer, performer and producer.
Hi, I'm Kate, and as Karen said, have got lots of different hats, and my creative trajectory, I suppose, has come from a performing background, working in theatre, producing interactive participatory work. Somewhere along that line, I found myself doing a couple of seasons touring as a volunteer with NoFitState Circus, which introduced me to quite a lot of things that I didn't know existed about what circus actually means in the UK and further afield today. And I got to try out lots of exciting physical activity, and tight wire is my favourite. I got to go and play on a tight wire at the weekend because I got to a point where I wanted to find out more about what was going on in circus and just how the industry worked and what shows were happening. And at the time, that digital space wasn't being populated. And then I had a bit of a light bulb moment that if I want to read this stuff, other people probably want to read this stuff too, and somebody had better start putting it out there, and why not make that me? And I was lucky enough to take part on an EU-funded residency where arts writers from different genres were taken off to circus festivals around Europe to explore how to write critically about circus. And so the Circus Diaries was born about 2.5 years ago, and I've become more and more involved with it and wanting to put more out there, because the more you get involved with a scene, the more you realise the nitty-gritty and the elements that can be communicated. And what started off as a nice little hobby has become very time-consuming and very expensive, and now I'm going, no, I'm working here, this is actually work, and if it's work, then I need to find a way of making that sustainable as work, and that is where the Patreon came in, which is where you found me, and which is why we're here.
It is.
There we go.
What does your audience mean to you?
If I wasn't getting an audience, then I wouldn't care about it. I mean, I could keep putting the work out there for myself, but if it wasn't engaging people, then I probably wouldn't feel the need to push to make it sustainable. I could keep it as the hobby, but when people are asking me to come and review performances or to report on conferences and events or to, publicise get-togethers and that kind of thing in the circus sector, then I know that there's demand for what I'm doing, and if there's demand for it, it seems fair that maybe I'm not doing it for free anymore. The Circus City thing at the moment, it's the second circus festival that Bristol is having. This is the first Circus City. And it's pretty much the whole of October with performances in... It's a real diversity of genre, which if you don't really know much about circus might sound confusing, because I think to a lot of people circus still means a big top and the very traditional imagery that you've had from pop culture growing up, whereas actually as an art form it has evolved quite a lot. This festival is a fine example of that, and there's also been seminars going on, Clowns and Power and Women in Circus, and integrated circus performers with disabilities and varied abilities, and we had an open space. So
great for participation, isn't it? I mean,
so yeah, one of the things that's been coming out of sort of the open space and the discussions that have been happening over the course of the festival is about communication of the art form, and I think that's really interesting, because actually that's where I sit and that's what I'm trying to do, but it seems like other people are just beginning to recognise that it's important, because artists want to make work, don't they? But actually, in order for that work to translate and for the sector to grow and develop, but a lot of people have quite a dated perception. And actually, what circus is now is this big range that goes from touring, tenting circuses to something in a theatre, but it comes from a base in circus training and that way of looking at making work and coming from the body and objects.
Yeah. Is there a crossover, would you say, at some point between circus and cabaret, or do they merge?
Yeah, there is, or it certainly feels like there's a revitalised interest in those sort of forms. Circus artists can take an act and their technique, and that can be performed within a cabaret setup, and that happens very often, that you'll have, you know, your singer, your comedian, your juggler, your hoop artist up in the air. It's a cabaret show, but it will have an element of circus performance. So there is crossover in that way. And also what I think is quite a knot to untangle is that it seems there's been a big sudden boost in popularity of it taking part in burlesque classes or pole dance classes or aerial classes, and people realising they can do it and they're getting opportunities to perform, but there's not much of a level of quality control. And part of that is this lack of critical discourse in those areas. A lot of the time you might get a theatre or a dance reviewer who sees one show with circus skills in it a year and will say, oh, it's amazing, because they've never seen it before, but there's no sense of relativity. So I think specialist art forms particularly need informed writing and talking about the work and getting it out there, and also artists talking about their own work and not being afraid to be honest and clear about what things are, rather than saying what they think people want to hear, which is hard because when you're trying to sell it, but actually maybe the honesty and the clarity in the long run for the entire industry would be a better. So the Patreon then is set up where people can give a monthly donation. So it's the equivalent of you go to the shop and you buy your monthly magazine for film technology or crafting, crochet or whatever, and if you have a specialist interest, that's how you find out what's going on. But because it's the internet, it's free, and it should be, because some people might only pick it up in the shop and flick through and then put it down again. But if people are buying it regularly, then this is the opportunity to, it's kind of fair use. Oh, so my perk levels, yeah, they are all in dollars, which is a little frustrating because I think it might confuse people. There's no pounds option. The $1 is the initial one, which is like 65p. Then there's a $5, which includes access to a special twibbon that says you're a circus hero that you can put on your social media, and shout-outs as well, and also then you get your name listed on the supporters website. There is a $9 plus, which is you get a special handmade thank you card, which features the art. It's a pack of playing cards by an artist called Emmanuel Jose, who makes paper-cut packs of cards, and one of his decks was called Sawdust, and I actually crowdfunded the creation of this deck, and so part of my perk for crowdfunding him was to get some of these decks sent through to me. So I'm now using the artwork and sending those playing cards, which are limited edition, out as thank yous to people.
Cool.
So it's a nice little...
Yeah, a nice little circle then. Crowdfunding, supporting crowdfunding.
Yeah, and I've also set up a $150 option, which is, I don't imagine anybody's going to pay that on a monthly basis, although it would be lovely if they did. But what I imagine that could be for potentially somebody can set it up, pay it once, and then cancel it again. And the perk that I've put on that is like editorial input. So if somebody has an event that they particularly want covered, then I can do that. I'm quite concerned about advertising because it is a review site or a critical site primarily. I don't want there to be any perceived conflict of interest.
Yeah.
So I think this might be a way that it can be fair. Like, I'll say I'll cover this event if you ask me to, but I'm not going to say what I'm going to put. You know.
So are you? Is it per edition or is it just monthly?
Monthly. So the milestones that it sets up, it shows you what will be achieved, basically. So my first milestone I hit in the first week, which was wonderful, which was $40, which is the equivalent of 25 quid, which was a sense of self-worth, that this work is actually worth something to somebody.
Yeah.
So that was good. I now own a sense of self-worth. Thank you, patrons. My second milestone, I'm $1.50 away from it at the moment, which is the costs associated with producing a book review, because as well as show reviews, the site does do literature reviews, which includes time spent reading, writing, researching. The next milestone up is the cost to actually produce a show review, which again is time, travel, because things don't appear on your doorstep when you want them to. I think then I've got a milestone of producing 4 reviews a month, which is it's probably what I do now, but I don't. So it'd be nice if, you know, I wasn't losing out every month. And then what's really exciting to me is then the next milestone would be where I can afford to mentor young writers and pay, or new, not young necessarily, but pay them to contribute so that there's more voices talking about this subject, which is so small and niche and hidden at the moment. And then my big one, and this is the furthest milestone I've got at the moment, would be to produce, with this new team of writers that the website has developed, a Circus Awards system, so that the work that we're talking about and that's feeding us is also then recognised and acknowledged where quality is, because they're, I mean, I was working this summer at Edinburgh on the Total Theatre Awards, which was fantastic. Got to see a lot of work that might not have been on my radar otherwise. It wasn't just circus, but they do a Circus Theatre Award, but what they're looking for is quite specific. So what we found is there were a lot of circus shows in Edinburgh who had a lot of value in certain aspects, but those aspects don't fit the Total Theatre criteria, so there's no space for them to get that acknowledgement at the moment. So it would be amazing to be able to set up an award system where work can be seen for what it is. So yes, I definitely have plans afoot.
Yeah, I'm going to stop recording now, and then we can kind of just have a bit of a catch up before we go about our day. So
all right.
Thank you so much, Kate, for being my very first In Conversation rebooter. And hopefully I'll catch up with you, find out how your Patreon's going soon.
Yeah, thanks very much, Karen. See you.